And we are live. Welcome, folks, to episode 3810, 3,810 times we have gotten together to do an episode of the Survival Podcast, reaching back almost 18 years now, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. I'm excited today because I have one of my really good friends, long-term member of the Expert Council, awesome member of the TSPC community, and someone most people, almost everyone, most people, I'm sure somebody don't like him, but most people like the guy, Nick Ferguson. He's going to be on. We're going to be talking about oaks and fodder trees and homestead resilience and function stacking and all sorts of good things with Nick today. He's one of the best designers I know of in the permaculture and regen ag space. And he's got a lot of cool stuff to talk to us about today, including how you can get your hands on some of the trees that he still has available this year. But notice I said some of the trees because some of the packages are still available and some of you snoozed, even though I told you, and those packages are gone. But one that's maybe a little bit overlooked we're going to talk about today is the oaks. Oaks can be an incredibly awesome piece of a homestead. So we're going to talk about that and many other things today. If you do happen to have a question today, follow I seldom use this guy as an example, but follow the example of John Dowie there and put the word question or comment or something like that in all caps, followed by your question or what you want us to comment on. I will then star that for you. Another example of how to do it right there. And I'll star that for you, and we will come and take Q&A at the end rather than disrupting the flow of the conversation. Everybody else joining on a live stream on the chat, if you happen to be here live, if you're like, I don't see a place, that's probably because you're watching it tomorrow, which is now today for you, and that already happened and you missed the live. You want to make a live, go to thesurvivalpodcast.com, click on Get Social, sign up for our Telegram announcement channel. And usually about 2 to 3 hours prior to every live stream, you will get a notice from me telling you all the places you can catch us live. If you're like, hey, I'm on your YouTube channel, I subscribe, thank you. I hit the little bell, thank you. YouTube sucks and you probably still won't get the notice. So it would be great if you'd go over there and get on our Telegram channel as well. We are definitely shadow banned on YouTube, even when we're talking about stuff like how to grow a homestead and plant trees. Actually, that might be more subversive than some of the reasons we're actually shadow banned for. Anyway, before I bring Nick on, let's go ahead and hear from our sponsors of the day. Sponsor of the day, number one today, is John Pugliano with the Wealthsteading Podcast, where you can learn to grow your wealth like you grow a garden, or like you grow a tree, might be a better way to put it. John is the real deal, though. He's not just an investment manager and a great podcaster. He is also a guy that made himself into a liquid millionaire before he ever touched a dime of anybody else's money through investing. And he's a prepper. He has got the garden. He's a ham radio operator. He's got the stored up stuff. He's even got a really cool, he calls it a remote office, but it's basically a little bug out trailer. He's a reloader. He casts his own lead bullets. He's a good dude. Met him first in 2010. We're still working together. Check out the Wealthsteading Podcast and you'll see why. It's only about once a week and usually about somewhere between 8 and 15 minutes an episode on average. Next up today, if you want to build wealth, one thing you can do is stack some of that fiat money into hard assets. I love Bitcoin. I'm a Bitcoin bull, but I never stop, not for 1 second, recommending people to put money into silver and gold. My standing recommendation going back 18 years on this show is about 5% of your net wealth should be in precious metals, silver and or gold. And of course, you can adjust accordingly. I'm okay with it up to about 10%. I think when you go over that, maybe you're a little over leveraged in that space. But few people are actually even at the 5% mark. If you're going to add to your stack, get on over to JM Bullion. They give you a discount. I can talk directly to the president if there's a problem. Seldom have to do that, but I can when necessary. And like I said, they'll do a discount for you for an MSB member. All your orders ship free, and they have better pricing than like Monex, AppMex, and Lear Capital, all three of which have asked to be sponsors on the show, and we're told no. So if I told them no, you should tell them no too. And with that, I want to say to our special guest and my good friend, Nick Ferguson, hey, man, welcome back to the Survival Podcast, Nick.
Always great to be here, bud.
Hey, before we get into this today, let everybody know you're waiting on baby girl Ferguson, right? I mean, you've got 3 young men that you're raising there. You guys have wanted a girl for a long time, and that's going to happen. But you had her close call, and then no baby.
Yeah. The due date was, I think, last Thursday, and it looked like she was going to come a couple days early, so we headed off to the birth center, and I don't know. Things just
No,
stalled out. We end up spending the better part of a week in town. My wife called it a baby moon. We
yeah.
just kind of we went to Hobby Lobby and Jason's Deli and different places and kind of wasted some money, but she had fun and then we headed home. We're still waiting. I don't know. I think was it
Maybe baby girl Ferguson heard of some of the stuff that's going on in the world right now and just said, I'm not coming out yet.
right?
I'll see y'all in a few weeks. Y'all fix this crap before I come out.
or it's like that I think it's a Brad Paisley song, Waiting on a Woman.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I think that might have something to do with it.
That song. Well, yeah, because you got two women you're waiting on now.
Yeah.
Your life's about to have a lot more waiting in it. Anyway, for people that don't know you, I mean, anybody's listening to this show for any length of time knows you, but you get new people every day. So can you got to give people your background, what you do and how you ended up doing it? Because it wasn't what you always did. It is kind of what you always wanted to do, though.
Yeah. Well, I grew up as I was homeschooled, and my parents, early on recognized that I had certain aptitudes, and I was really interested in ecology and ecosystems. And when I was like under 8 years old, I was setting up aquariums and trying to build whole ecosystems. It wasn't this plastic plants with a Walmart turtle or something. Back when Walmart sold fish and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was, I wanted real plants. I wanted real driftwood. I was collecting rocks to put in there, making real stuff. And I was interested in the whole entire ecosystem, the little tiny things in there. So, I grew up with designing whole ecosystems in glass boxes. And all through college, I mean, on a college student's budget, I wanted to make ecosystems in glass boxes. And then, as I got older, my grandfather was a sustainable ag consultant. So I kind of grew up around this stuff. And then when I heard about permaculture, a whole bunch of disparate elements kind of clicked into place, if you will. And I was like, hey, there's a really cool framework to connect a whole bunch of these seemingly disparate things and knowledge bases. And it just clicked, and it worked really well, and I liked it. And so I started looking into it more and more. And then a whole bunch of crazy stuff was going on in the world. There was a telegraph punch with real estate markets and stuff. And I was getting really uneasy for a couple of years leading up to the 2008 crash, and getting back into prepping and everything. And I found this crazy guy. I mean, he was crazy. He was a little bit annoying.
Nuts,
a little bit annoying. He was yelling at people in his car. And I was like, I don't know if this guy is going to be kind of what I want to be listening to. And it just kept coming back to it because the information was always just freaking spot on. And then he started talking about permaculture and stuff. And I was like, hey, this is cool. And just one thing led to another. I ended up starting full time doing consulting, helping people with their properties. It kind of just fell into my lap because people kept saying, listen, you're really good at this. You need to charge money for this. I would have paid you $500 for just the one question you answered me, because you saved me thousands of dollars. And I was like, hey, there's an opportunity here. I love doing this stuff. So yeah, it just kind of snowballed from there. I met up with you and your amazing audience, and now I've been coast to coast numerous times. Northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere. I've been down to Ecuador consulting. Just this summer, I did what I think it was 14,000 miles. Stopped at like at least 50. I think it was more than 50 locations, just in a couple months. It was grueling. I'm still catching up on all of the reports that people want. Haven't even started on all the soil testing that people requested, but yeah, it's been good. I love helping people get clarity. I mean, even you, from complete newbies to people like with your expertise will call me up and ask me, like you and I will bounce ideas back and
Oh,
forth.
yeah.
Even if you really know what you're talking about, it is really advantageous sometimes to get a different set of eyes on the problem, because you know sometimes you're not going to see all of the little nuance and the details, and somebody else who really knows what they're talking about can really help you identify stuff. But you know, I tell people all the time, listen, I'm not some magical wizard. I'm just a pretty regular guy that just nerds out on this stuff. I love this stuff. I kind of live, eat, and breathe it. So yeah.
You just brought something up there with the whole permaculture thing back when I started talking about it. Now, I grew up hunting, fishing, and gardening and foraging. Like that was like, for us, it wasn't even just something we did. It was literally part of how we handled our budget for food.
Yeah.
I grew up in a place where, you know, deer season first day is closed at school because nobody would be there anyway, that kind of place. But and I knew a lot about organic. I even knew the term regenerative back in 08 when I started the show. I didn't find permaculture until I started the show, and people were like, hey, you need to check this permaculture thing out. And I went to YouTube, and the first thing I did was stick in permaculture. And you know, the first freaking video
I know the video.
You can see it in your head. It was a bunch of people rolling around in mud acting like retards. And I'm like, I don't think this is for me. And then I got the associated video thing. I see this old man, kind of looks like I do now back then. And it was Bill Mollison. And somewhere in that video, he said, I realized I had a decision to make. I could either let the bastards roll over everything, or I could go back and fight the bastards. And I went, that's my dude right there. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. This is the guy that created the damn thing. And then when you started listening to me, were you into the permaculture space yet? Or were you still in kind of that mode where you didn't really know what it was?
No, it was when I started listening to you, it was just on the periphery. You are the one that really brought it full center for me. I had heard about it, and it was too much of the earth worshiping, the purple breathing, earth worshiping, woo woo stuff. I was just like, listen, I can see some of the ancillary benefits to some of these things, but I'm just not into all of this just silliness. I mean, it was there's just a lot of was it Paul Wheaton? It's just marketing.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of that.
That's just marketing.
It's just a lot of that in that space.
Yeah. So you ended up getting a PDC from Geoff Lawton when he made it accessible to everybody through distance learning. How has that impacted what you do? Because I take a lot from the permaculture space, but I also take a lot from more of the school of thought of people that I guess were pulled into permaculture by marketing because what they were doing fits, like Mark Shepard and Gabe Brown and things like that. And I kind of span those two worlds. I think you do as well.
Yeah. So I think the PDC and permaculture in general do bring a tremendous amount to the table. I think for a lot of people, it gives them a shift in perspective that snaps a whole bunch of things that they wouldn't have realized were connected into focus. I think it brings a lot of really good practical application information to the table. Where I find it most lacking is the practical application, is the real world boots on the ground. This is going to impact my life in a substantive way. I think it was Stephen Covey's highly effective, the 5
habits of highly effective people.
There you go. The whole concept of my sphere of influence and my sphere of concern. The main drawback that I've seen in the whole permaculture sphere is the vast majority of those people that are really inured into that culture, they have this massive sphere of concern and a very tiny sphere of influence. And they are focused on their sphere of concern.
Correct.
And when you're focused on the sphere of concern, you're focused on a lot of big picture stuff. Like one of my biggest pet peeves is herb spirals, that kind of thing. You know, it's the little gimmicky marketing things that, yes,
Yeah.
they have some good legitimate principles to teach,
Yeah.
but it's people that miss the forest for the trees, and they're like, well, if it's permaculture, it's got to be, fill in the blank.
You have to have an herb
gimmick.
spiral. You have
Right.
to have a food forest. You
Right.
you have to have a chinampa, right? Everybody wants
You have to have a
chinampa.
swale.
Bro, the chinampa is in the permaculture course because of all the things it teaches, not because you're supposed to build one. Do you
Right.
live in a subtropical climate where there's a natural flooded area? Do you have a village to maintain the damn thing? Because it's going to, but everybody wants to do the thing instead of take the lesson of the thing. And then the other side of it you're talking about there, you're kind of hitting on more of like the socio-political side of it. Like these people take these courses because they want to fix global warming, right? And that's way on the periphery of your concern sphere, right? Like you have this little bitty control sphere and then a little bit bigger influence sphere, and that's where the focus needs to be. And there's people that they see how a herb spiral works, and they walk around their property and they go, oh, now I know how to identify microclimates. And then you have people that want to stick an herb spiral in the middle of a place where there won't be any because it's like out in the damn center of a yard that is going to get blazed with sun all day, and the whole thing's and it's South Texas, and it's going to be 147 degrees. That's going to be your microclimate. One side's 147 degrees, and the other side's 128 degrees. Those will be your two microclimates, right? Like,
right.
And that kind of thing. Like, I think one of the reasons I even brought that up is I get people all the time asking me about taking a PDC, and I'm like, if the motivation's right and the expectations are right, it's absolutely worth the time and effort. If what you really want is your garden to be more productive, take an organic gardening course at your local extension. That will do more for you.
Absolutely.
Or hire a Ferguson, right? Like,
Yeah.
Especially, I think the people that look at it and go, well, I want these 5 things. Y'all are the people that really need to hire a Ferguson. Because you might come in there and go, well, what you really want is this result. And 2 of those things will help you get there. One of them is kind of, and 2 of them will make you fucking miserable.
Yes.
And you will hate your life, and you will yell and scream, and then you will pull it all out of the ground, and you will be out lots and lots of money that you never had to spend. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
I see people throw 10 grand at some idea that they think is going to be permaculture, and they think it's going to be really effective and move the needle. And it's kind of like, to draw a comparison, it's like when people first get into preparedness, prepping, they're like, man, the world is going to end next Friday. And so I need to be prepared for Mad Max, the apocalypse. I need body armor. I need a battle rifle and 10,000 rounds of ammo. And I need some beans and bullets and Band-Aids. Right. And they're not ready for next week's mundane emergency.
Yeah.
By having a little air compressor and a tire patch kit, or like a tire plug kit.
Yeah.
In their trunk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, let's start with the really effective things that are, generally speaking, going to be a whole lot more affordable and are going to really freaking move the needle, instead of worrying about these big regional disasters. Like, there's going to be a CME, any year now, there's going to be a massive CME, and I'm going to be out of all my power and all my electronics. So I've built this massive Faraday cage, and you don't have a week's worth of food or like a small generator for when the power goes out in the spring. Because I mean, storm systems come through and you lose power for a day or two, So it's kind of that same thing. It's when that permaculture focus becomes on the big picture stuff before you have the little stuff that is right in your own backyard taken care of.
So one of the things we promised people we'd cover today, at least I promised people we'd cover today in the pre-show marketing, is function stacking. And I know that's a big thing out of your space. What do you think it really means for homesteaders? And why would you say it's a game changer? And I'm going to add to that, if done right. I see a lot of people with maybe mental gymnastic function stacking. Like they have all these things, and maybe all those things are possible, but some of them are very much not probable, because there's always the human involved, and we all have things that distract us, like babies and who knows what else. So we have to be really careful in justifying things. Just because it function stacks doesn't mean it's worth spending, half your salary on for the year. How do you kind of drill down and find the things that actually make the most sense?
Yeah, so I find it always in discussing any of these things to first and foremost define terms. Function stacking, that's a common permaculture buzzword. All it is it's something that is going to do multiple jobs at the same time. It's going to serve multiple purposes. It should overlap layers within the same system. Okay. So that should lead to compounding yields, not static and not degradation. Okay. It really is a game changer, because it allows you to do a lot more with less. It is it's a force multiplier. So it allows you to do more with less space, time, money, and inputs and outputs, essentially. So it builds resilience. It boosts redundancies in whatever system that you're talking about, whether this is a natural system, which is mostly what I'm going to be talking about today. So if one of these functions, one of these little elements in the design fails, we have others built into the system from the get-go to take up the slack, because living systems are dynamic. You've got insects and diseases and different, there's tons of different interactions. And so stuff is going to die. People talk to me all the time about how they feel like a failure because they've killed X number of trees. And I'm like, man, you're just getting started. Wait till you get up to my numbers. I've killed tens of thousands of trees. So, it's just gonna happen. Your animals are gonna die, your plants, and like comfrey. You can't kill comfrey. Bull crap. I kill comfrey all the time. So we need to build resiliency, because if we don't have resiliency and redundancy, we don't have a stable system. It can't take the hits.
And on the whole killing things, Nick once famously said to me, "You did everything right except one thing. You planted it here." And he wasn't talking about the physical individual location. He meant on my property.
Yeah.
This is the property where things come to die. This is the property of 4 inches of dirt and then rock. And so, yeah.
You're a masochist.
But we have found a shitload of things that do well.
That's right.
And we found it by killing the hell out of everything else. And the stuff that lived, hey, it's Darwinism, man. And in some ways, a lot of what we do, hopefully we don't have to be too harsh with this, but in some climates and some properties you do, is basically accelerated Darwinism, right? We're not trying to evolve the species. We're just like murdering everything, and the stuff that remains gets to live, right? It's a steroid version of Mark Shepard's stun method, which is sheer total utter neglect. Except here, if you give it complete neglect, it probably will die.
Yeah, one of those great things that I love about your property and the systems that we've been able to see develop and change. Everyone talks about black locust being completely bulletproof, and for years I have thought black locust is one of the most bulletproof support species that you could possibly include in any kind of ecosystem in at least in temperate North America. You know what I discovered by observing your property is I am far more impressed with hackberry
Oh yeah,
than black locust.
because they do live here. Some of them die, some of them suffer. Many of them do well, but hackberry, like we planted the locust. The hackberry is like, oh, an oak tree's dying. I'll show up, and like that's how I know an oak's dead. As soon as I see a hackberry sapling coming up near its roots, I'm like, I might as well cut that tree down.
Yep,
because
it's going to be dead in the next couple years. I agree.
It's one of the hardiest trees. And then I think you already knew, but I discovered with all these little saplings popping up that it's a great fodder tree because the gooselings, they love it, right? So like it's a fodder tree. It produces a very tiny berry, but it's kind of cool. It can be used for some things. But it's a fantastic overstory tree. And it like if it'll live here.
it's okay. So it's hardy. It makes great biochar. It
does.
It's easy to turn into wood chips. It's not super hard. So it makes fantastic mulch. It makes great biochar. It makes great fodder. It's not a white mulberry. No, it doesn't have the digestibility. It doesn't have the protein content that white mulberry does, but almost nothing does. But is it good? Is it palatable? Absolutely, absolutely. It checks those boxes. And when we're talking about something that, hey, you've got that, cheap, good, fast, triune application thing. Well, if one of your big criteria is, hey, I need something that's low maintenance that I can count on to do well, man, that hackberry ticks that box.
Practice some propagation, because you would think as it's a maligned tree. People talk shit about it all the time.
They hate it.
My uncle used to say they call it hackberry because it'll make you hack. And I'm like, have you ever actually tried a hackberry? Because there's not much to them, but they actually taste good. And they're actually a source of oil from the seeds as well. If you had the patience. I mean, I don't know how anybody would. But I had a low view of it too until I realized like all the things that it did. And it's a pretty good source of lumber, not for like high-end building or something, but for you mentioned quick, fast, and cheap. And they always say you can pick two.
Yep.
And I guess if you're building a computer network, which is where that was designed for to sell base, that's a sales technique I used to use. It's true. But with a tree, they are very fast growing. And they are really good, and they can be cheap if you learn how to make them yourself. Because go price them, and you'll look at a 1.5-year-old sapling, $60. Some $30 would be like a cheap shitty one. And I'm like, when I looked at, because I thought, well, shit, I'll just buy some more of those and add some more and bring some shit. It's like, nah, I ain't paying for that. I'll make my own.
Right.
let the ducks crap it out, because that's where I think this is where the propagation comes from. Those ducks every year when one drops mass, they're just waddling around making little capsules out of them.
Absolutely.
And I mean, they've been a fantastic tree. I didn't think you'd bring that up today, but yeah, you're right. That is something revealed by my masochistic permaculture hobby.
I wanted to give the listeners an example to kind of illustrate the function stacking versus kind of a single use thing. So let's take modern agriculture. We've got like anhydrous ammonia, like we're putting ammonium nitrate or whatever out on our crop, for instance. So if we try and take that factory farming principle of, I'm just going to buy this synthetic salt and I'm going to put it out on my garden. Okay. So I've got a garden, and because I'm not gardening 1,000 acres, but I'm going to copy and paste what the big farmers do on their big operations. And I'm just going to use that kind of fertilizer. It's a single use. It does one thing. It provides nitrogen. Okay. It helps the plants with protein synthesis. It's toxic. It kills microorganisms. So we are not building soil life. Can we add those synthetic salts in small amounts without having this nuclear effect on our soils? Yes. It's not the end of the world. It's not, well, you killed it. It's done for generations. It's ruined forever. Oh my gosh, you use synthetic salts. No.
Did Paul Wheaton just possess you for a couple seconds? Right.
Like, we can use those.
Yeah.
Very sparingly.
Yeah.
I think very sparingly. They can be useful. Should we use them all the time? No, because they are detrimental to the ecosystem. And we don't want just dirt. And that's what these factory farmers have. They have dirt. They don't have soil, because the vast majority of the life is just gone from their dirt. So I don't even like to call it soil. So we take that as the negative example, right? And then we're going to contrast that with a permaculture example of something like indigo bush. It grows pretty much from zone 10, zone 9, all the way up to freaking Canada. So just about anywhere in the USA, which is where most of your listeners are, you can grow false indigo, Amorpha fruticosa. Okay. It is a nitrogen fixer. It's not a fodder tree. Don't put it where your herbivores are going to get into it.
Mm-hmm.
But it is freaking bulletproof. It is tough. It fixes nitrogen. So let's just run down kind of a laundry list of some of the functions that it stacks. Okay. So it's not just nitrogen, but it has like 20% nitrogen by dry matter. I think, let me look at my 20% in, dry matter leaf, nitrogen content. That's protein content, and you get nitrogen from protein. So that's really good. It fixes nitrogen in the soil. Okay. So every time you chop and drop that, you have a pulsation event subsurface under the soil. So it is losing a little bit of roots. It's not like a 1-to-1. I cut off half of the thing, it loses half of its roots, but it'll lose a little bit of the roots.
Yep.
So we have some drop of those nitrogen nodules. Those get released. But mostly what we're having is this arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi interaction going on. And we have a little bit of degradation, a little bit of rebuilding, a little bit of degradation, these little pulsation events. Mm-hmm. Every time we're chopping a little bit off the top, we have a little bit of pulsation event. And it's like these interactions in time. It's the edge, right? The edge effect in permaculture is a big hot button thing. And so we have fertility. We are building the soil. We are building the bacteria and the fungi and the protozoa and all the little crustaceans and critters and worms. They're all being built up and increased in population. And when they go through their life cycles, their little bodies die and decompose and produce lots of food for the plants. So like I've got a squash growing next to this, or a tomato, or some strawberries, or whatever I've got growing near this. I can place these elements, this indigo bush, for instance, more towards the west and the south to provide some edge and some structure within my growing space. So I'm providing the fertility that the nitrates would provide with the synthetic fertilizers, the salts, right? So I've got that already taken care of. It's not going to impact it as much, but the cumulative effect over years and years of this is going to be greater. It's free. It's freaking free. All I have to do is do a little bit of effort. On top of all that, we've got shade. We have structure providing windbreak. It provides shade in harsh times of the day. It is pollinator habitat. It brings in bees, which increase my yields. If I don't have many pollinators, I'm not going to have as good of yields. It provides structure for predators. It gives a perching spot for insectivore birds, right? All of these things are stacking and stacking and stacking. And what we end up with is instead of having a a system where we're just constantly putting out fires by reactively acting in this environment by, oh, it's not enough nitrogen, I got to put more nitrogen out. I've got to send out my dollars, lose embodied energy, which is what dollars are. It's my time, my effort, part of my life. I have to exchange part of my life for those ammonium salts. Every time I buy that stuff, and I lose stuff from my sphere of influence, which is where I want to keep everything. And instead, we've got this natural system that stacks all these different functions, that builds resiliency and enables me to mature that ecosystem in a way that generations from now, it can still be functional. So I hope that kind of painted a little bit of a picture of the juxtaposition between the conventional, reactive, allopathic medicine type thinking and the more permaculture regenerative function stacking idea.
Let me just tell you guys what you didn't hear. Everybody out there should go get false indigo and plant it in your backyard now. That is not
No.
what you said, right? This is a plant that may serve this purpose in your system if it's the right plant for the system you're putting it into. It's not for your bunnies to eat, and you don't want to put it where, like you said, don't put this thing where your ruminants feed, because they are often indiscriminate feeders, and it's not a good thing for them. That's not really what it's for. But what I put up on the screen while you were talking about it, all these wonderful things that it does, is that 99% of people who can recognize it and say what it is think it's a weed. They see no value at all in it, right? Because
it's really hard to kill.
Yeah. So that makes it a weed, right? If it grows somewhere without you putting it there, and you decided you didn't want it there, and you spray it and it doesn't die, then it must be a weed. That is the mindset we're actually trying to break here with this, right? Like things that don't die, instead of trying to kill it even more, figure out how to use it, how to partner with it, how to make it part of your system, right?
We want honey badgers working for us, not fighting against us.
But like the function stacking thing, it can either happen backwards or forwards, right? So for instance, my main garden is on the east side of my second shop building. And you know exactly why it's there, because it gets morning sun and eastern and western and afternoon shade, which is where I live perfect. But I put the garden there because the building was there. Right. If I'd gotten here and decided to put a building that size in, it may not even be where it is, but I would have probably went like, where's my best garden spot?
That's
and then I wouldn't have put the building in just to put shade where the garden is, right? But I would have considered that when I put the building in that I was already going to put in. And that is the mindset of like anything you're going to do before you do it, pull back, evaluate what its second and third order effects are. How could you harness them? And then maybe you won't do something like, oh, I don't know, Nicole, put your swim spa in a place and go, this would be awesome with a greenhouse around it, and have 20 people that know how to do all kinds of shit stand there and go, it's a great idea. I don't think you're going to be able to do it here. Right? Because it was a really cool idea, but like there's a down guy there, there's a pole there, and there's a drop off there. And to be fair to Nicole, I don't think there is another place that thing could have went. But that thought came after the fact, so there was never an opportunity. Like maybe just cutting out another 5 feet and pulling it back would have made it doable and made it practical. I'm not really sure. It was last time I looked at it, but that's the kind of thinking is like anytime, especially when you're going to spend a lot of money. Right. Like when you're going to put something like, if you're going to put a potted plant on your porch, I don't really care where you put it. If it gets sick, you'll move it, right? If it's too hot, you'll move it. You'll move. It's easy. What would it take after you've done it to undo it or reposition it? And the longer that answer is and the more expensive that answer is, the more you think before you go. Like Joel Salton always says, what about fences? Like she's rebar and electric wire. And if 5 years later it's still there,
that's right.
Put a permanent fence in.
Right.
Right. And I know he's not absolutist with that.
Right.
Right. He's not going to be a perimeter fence or like your dog fence around your smaller yard or whatever. But he's trying to make the bigger point of think before you. when you start talking, let's say you're on even 10 acres and you start putting a bunch of cross fencing, and you can be in the tens of thousands of dollars overnight.
Real quick.
And then when you're like, well, I didn't really want that there. Yeah, you could have bought 200 foot of goat fence and some T-posts and screw it up and been like, I'll make it look pretty later if I decide I like it. Yeah. And then if you wanted to move it, you just roll the fencing back up, pull the T-posts out, and reposition them, or you could sell them to somebody, right? It's portable infrastructure. Think before you act. And the longer, how close to a type 1 error are you?
Right. Yeah.
Like putting a building in the wrong place is a type 1 error. And the way Mollison described that for folks that maybe never heard it before is it is an error that you begin to regret the second you make it, and you regret for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Right. Or at least as long as you're in that place. Like you walk out and look at it 3 years later and go, no, and you mumble cuss words under your breath when you look at it. And that's what we're trying to avoid with that mindset.
Yeah. Every chance that you can to think about it and like you're putting in something expensive like a building, find a way to make it serve multiple purposes, not just with the building itself, but with its placement, the effects it's going to have on your landscape. Think about those before you put it in. Think about it, because you might be able to pick up essentially free money in the form of time and effort later on. Instead of buying shade cloth, if I can use a building and a couple, $4 trees, if I can utilize that for my shade instead of buying shade cloth, that when we get a really big storm come through, I have a really expensive kite wrapping around a transformer half a block away.
Yeah.
One of these things is better than the other one.
Yeah, definitely. Let's get into the tree stuff. Let's talk about fodder trees for a bit. You actually kind of push people at this point, and I don't know if this was always the case. It's kind of evolved over time as you've developed kind of your own thing. But you push people more toward fodder trees than even like fruit trees, at least establishment wise. Why is that?
Yeah. So, honestly, it is, after, I can't remember exactly what year it was, but as I was helping people with their properties early on, I kept running into this same problem, the same breaking point. Every single one of these systems kept breaking when I looked at the macro picture. And that's what I'm always trying to do, is I'm trying to look at the macro picture, the patterns that will ensure that what I am creating, what I'm encouraging these clients to do is actually going to work, is actually going to be functional, and is resilient. It's not going to be fragile. So the common element that kept coming back over and over and over and over again, every single one of these people was beholden to the feed store. If whatever insert, big box store, feed store, or local co-op stopped getting the factory farmed grain inputs, all of their animals would die because they have nothing to feed them except for some grass. And a lot of these people they're so stuck into the feed store mindset. Well, I'm buying alfalfa, which is plants. It's leaves, but I'm buying an alfalfa mixed, feed. And I have, other than a little bit of grass, which is not going to be usable in the wintertime because I don't have a way to harvest it really.
Yeah.
They kept running into this. If I can't get, $1,000 worth of feed every 2 months from the feed store, my system breaks. So, and then I can't feed my kids. And that's a big problem in my mind. I want to be able to feed my kids. So I started looking into solutions, and it always came back to the short answer being fodder trees. High protein, high digestibility, very palatable, good quality trees, perennial systems, J. Russell Smith's perennial systems, mindset. What can I plant once and essentially have for the rest of my life? Or what can I plant and easily propagate? And I don't have to keep breaking. I don't have to do the hard work of tilling the soil, because again, I try to think, okay, not that I'm planning for living like the Amish, but what if I had to do stuff without a tractor, without diesel equipment? What if there was the crazy, lights out, fantasy book where there's no power, there's no electronics, there's no engines to do anything, and I have to feed my family? What if? And could that function well when everything is copacetic, and I can be streaming YouTube while I'm chugging along on my tractor in the air conditioning, still managing the same system? But if all that was taken away in the blink of an eye, could it still feed my family? And fodder trees always checked that box. I can always feed my animals with these tree systems. So, I talk about coppicing. So for those who haven't heard it, and we don't really have time to get into all the details, but coppicing, it's everyone cutting it down to a stump. It's 4 inches tall at the tail end of winter, when we're resetting the system to 0, and it's regrowing, and it's going to get up about waist high. And that's where we're going to manage it, at waist high. Whatever height you are, if you're 4'11", it's going to be a shorter waist high. If you're 6'11", it's going to be a taller waist high. But the reason why we're doing that is we want to maintain some leaves on that tree. So this is not direct browse. We're not letting the animals go in there and harvest it themselves, because they will take off all the low stuff and they'll leave all the top stuff, and it'll look like a savanna. But that's not what we're going for. We're not going for savanna ecosystem here. So we are excluding the animals from the ecosystem. We are going there. We're managing it ourselves because we want high productivity. And I'm going to let those trees grow up 4 to 5 feet tall, and then I'm going to harvest the top half. I'm going to give them a flat top haircut, right? Every row of trees is going to get harvested. I might harvest 1 row this week, the next row the next week, the next row the next week. If I only have 2 female rabbits and 1 male in a cage, and that's all I've got going on, well, I might just have a dozen trees, right? And I might harvest 1 tree or part of this 1 tree this week, and then part of it the next day, and part of it the next day, so on and so forth, right? So this is repeatable harvest. I'm harvesting these trees. Typically, I'm harvesting every single tree once every 2 weeks in the height of summer. And that's a crap ton of productivity. And we are talking the low end, 15% protein. The high end, close to 30% protein dry matter. That is incredible. That is approaching soybean meal protein content. So when you hear me talking about these fodder trees, I'm not saying that we're going to be feeding rabbits nothing but white mulberry. You will have them painting the whole cage green. That is not what we want. We do not want barns painted green. We want them painted red with iron oxide paints to prevent mold and stuff. We don't want green paint that's made from plant matter.
Yeah.
So this is concentrated feed. This is high octane stuff, guys. This is not their whole diet. We're using cheaper stuff like hay and stuff to counterbalance it. Okay. It's fantastic digestibility. The white mulberry is like 70 to 90%. It's fantastic for anything from monogastric animals like pigs to poultry like chickens. So management, I covered that. We're just going to cut it all throughout the summer. I like to tell people, let these things grow for a couple years. Let them get at least a rake or broom handle diameter trunk on them before you even start harvesting off of them. Give them time to get established before you start coppicing. And then you're going to harvest every single summer. If you don't want to harvest, and that's one of the beauties of this system. So for people with like a bug out location, they're like, I don't want to have to do all this maintenance. Don't worry. Plant them, set it, forget it. leave them to grow there for 3, 4, 5 years. Maybe once a winter, go up there and cut it all down. They're just going to build up a bigger root zone and root system and root crown faster. You're going to be better off if you let them grow for 3, 4, 5 years while you're waiting on doomsday to drop in your lap, right?
Yeah.
So even if this is a bug out location, you can still do that same kind of thing. So that was all like white mulberry. The hybrid willow, all the same kind of mechanical principles apply. Something I just learned today, we talked about before the show started. I found out that the willows, they actually accumulate at a greater amount than most trees, 2 minerals that are really, really good for our livestock that are oftentimes in a deficiency kind of a situation for our livestock, and that is zinc and cobalt. So if we are applying a little bit of zinc and cobalt to our fodder tree system, they're harvesting it, and then we're feeding that to our animals.
Yeah. And then with that function stacking thing, then that cow,
right?
that goat, that sheep waddles around the rest of the property and poops. I don't know if you know this, those animals poop, and they just poop wherever they feel like it. And now that bioavailable zinc, far more bioavailable if we just put it out as a dust product. We're now remineralizing the soil by giving the tree a little bit of what it needs from a supplemental mineral standpoint. And that is way more useful than just putting out a mineral lick.
Right.
And it's 100 times more useful than doing what I said and getting like this little mineral packet and spreading it out on our land when 90% of it's not going to be bioavailable.
Right. Because if we're doing that,
a non-bioavailable element and we're turning it into a bioavailable element, and we're helping like how many things are we helping? I don't know. Because
the whole
we know
ecosystem.
We're helping the willow grow. We know we're helping the animal grow. But when that animal poops that out, how many species of plants are on your property? And then how many of those plants are actually support species for some other animal?
Right.
You've started a cascade that you can't even begin to understand what you've done.
Right. And we're taking it from an ionic form, which is typically going to be in a salt form, which again, that's fine, but it's very water soluble. And when it goes through the plant and then through the animal, now it is in a chelated form by and large. And so now we have a soil locked ecosystem sponge version of that mineral that's going to hang around for generations, and it's going to be sitting there just waiting. It's like we pick it up off the ground where it's going to get washed away, and we put it up on a shelf where the plants can just go through the mineral, grocery store and just pick what they want off of the shelves because it's right there. It's not getting washed away. It's not getting swept up by the whole system and just leaving to go to the rivers and the ocean eventually.
Yeah.
It's there. It's available to our grandchildren.
So, and let's add to this function stacking too, with just the concept of somebody's getting their little homestead. They buy a sizable piece of land, but it's not huge, 10 acres. That's a lot of land to take care of. They know they want room in it. So you go in, you tell them, hey man, let's put in, you ain't got a lot of money to start out with, but let's put in a row of white mulberry and a row of willow in this spot here. Is an ideal spot. You can keep your animals out of it easily. You can do all the things you said. Now, this person's going to want fencing. I guarantee anybody with 10 acres is going to want a significant amount of fencing. And we said what we said about the Geoff Lawton thing. Don't do the permanent fence. Well, if the fence is alive, so now I've got all this willow, as you know, obviously, but I don't know if everybody here does. You stick willow in the ground, it pretty much grows. If you the right time to cut the tree and the right time to stick it in the ground, and so you cut 1,000 pieces of willow about a foot long and stick them 6 inches in the ground, 6 inches apart. Where you want that fence, and it is not long before you have, and you can do some weaving or whatever it is you want to do with it, but it's not long where you have a living fence.
Right.
And so now that thing that was designed to feed your animal is actually fence construction material.
Right.
When you told somebody that about a tree, they pictured when you get this big giant tree and you go out there with a saw, because that's how, where I grew up in Pennsylvania, black locust. Like that's the thing. You take, and some of the, be fair, some of them posts are 100 years old and you still can't break it, right?
Oh, they're fantastic for that.
But if you have the right amount of rainfall, or you have areas that you don't have to irrigate something like a willow, and you make a willow fence like that, that if you take care of it, and basically now you're compassing the fence, or more accurately pollarding it.
That's right.
That fence can be there for 1,000 years.
I have a fence and I have feed. I'm function stacking. That's solid gold right there.
And then as that top comes up and I need another fence, there's all just my cuttings and it's another fence. I just keep extending that fencing until, I don't know, I start selling willows to other people because I'm out of all, and you can put a fence around your garden that way.
Yep.
Right. With a nice, beautiful, natural, like you could, because it bends. I've seen some gorgeous willow fenced gardens.
Beautiful.
Absolutely gorgeous. And that is so much more aesthetically pleasing, less like there's nothing about even a good looking fence that you built that's better than that, unless you just can't do it where you are. Like you wouldn't do that here because it'll die. But if you can do it, right, then why wouldn't you?
Right. Yeah, like just picture, for the audience, picture like I could do this with some 5-year-olds. You got a bucket full of these cuttings, okay? And a lot of people like, will a 1-foot stick work great? Absolutely. The more of that biomass you have to stick in the ground, the more likely it is that it's going to grow and it's going to root and it's not going to die.
Goofy.
But
it'll go in.
I have taken 2-inch pieces, put them horizontal, sitting on top of the dirt. Now I kept it moist. It rooted and grew. Okay. 2-inch little pieces of this willow. So I want you to imagine you're going through and you have pre-cut 4-inch sticks of this willow, and you've got a string line strung right where you want the fence to go. And you've got a couple rubber mallets. What 5-year-old would not have a whole lot of fun jabbing a stick right next to a string and smacking it with a rubber mallet? They're not going to hurt themselves. It's a rubber mallet.
Yeah.
And you're going through and you're kind of straightening up the ones that they screw up, and you're kind of leapfrogging, and they're involved. They're having a blast. And then a few years from then, they're going to look at that and say, you want to talk about some dopamine instead of, doom scrolling. We've got, if we're teaching little kids that, hey, here's the real dopamine. You made that. You made that, buddy.
Yeah.
And that's so quick.
That buy-in. Were you the same as I was when I was a kid? Like, eat your vegetables. But if it was vegetables from the garden that you fucking grew, you ate the shit out of it, right?
Boy.
Because you grew it.
That's my tomato. Hell yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So can I kind of walk people through like how you do like your prioritized steps and your roadmaps to like avoid a lot of mistakes? Because I know that's one of the big things about how long you've been doing this now and how many properties you've been on. You've seen a lot of good things, a lot of and a lot of double face palm. Like, wow, I really wish you wouldn't have done that.
Yeah. So so when we're talking about these support species and function stacking, this kind of stuff, can we skip this first priority? Yes. So maybe this should be a second priority, but I really think this should be a pretty high priority. So I like to put it as a number 1, because in a lot of situations, it can be the most important thing. Some situations you might be able to skip past this or give it a lower prioritization. But I'm going to say priority number 1 is a healthy soil foundation.
Okay.
So I want to see you get a test on your soil. They're really cheap. It gives you a diagnostic baseline number that you can then say, okay, I need to go this direction or this direction in the future. Even if you don't know what all the gobbledygook numbers are, if you can hand the data to somebody who does know 5 years down the road, and they can see, hey, 5 years ago, you had these numbers, and then This year, when you're asking for my help, you have these numbers. I can look at the delta between those two and see what you have been doing and what impact you've had. So starting with that data, have a data set. We need to be adding some organic matter. If that's just old hay to keep that soil covered and start building some soil, that is going to be one of the most important things. If we throw even cheap trees out into a nuclear landscape of it's just bare dirt in the middle of summer, and even if we water it, we have no soil cover with mulch, we're going to have a really tough go of it. So healthy soil foundation, if that means getting a little bit of calcium or a little bit of zinc or something else, that's going to help tremendously. And then if we're talking about these fruit trees, because this is a big issue that I run into a lot, is you got people spending $50, $60, $75 on a nice fruit tree, a really good cultivar. It's a grafted tree. It's a $75 hit. If that tree dies, you're going to be sad. And if you don't have the infrastructure first, you're going to be really sad. So having a nursery crop of support species is essential. I think you're foolish to spend money on expensive trees if you don't first have your nursery crop of trees growing and established. It's kind of like, it's the whole cart before the horse thing.
Yeah.
So to kind of go through a quick 5 steps: site selection, the site selection and the soil prep, plant support. So you can use the fodder trees. Even if this is going to be a succession planting, like we're going to grow fodder trees here first, get that site growing, and then those fodder trees, as we start propagating them out, we change that system over from fodder, because they're really hardy, into they're just chop and drop support species for the fruit trees. And they eventually success out and they're gone while after the fruit trees get established, right? Okay. So we get those either those support species or the fodder trees growing in that space, whether it's going to be long-term fodder or it's going to be long-term fruit trees or nut trees or whatever. And then step 3, we're going to integrate some of these other species. So if it's just fruit trees, I think it's great to integrate a little bit of these fodder trees in with your fruit trees, because they can take some of that brunt. So instead of like trying to copy and paste Stefan Sobakayak's permaculture orchard from Canada to East Texas, for instance, those aren't equivalent systems. And so we need to tweak things a bit. So this is a way that you could actually take that idea and tweak it to be regionally appropriate. Okay?
Yeah. Cool climate, moderate winter, high rainfall, Western Canada, boreal forest, does not Texas piney woods, heavy rainfall spring, drought summer every year, red clay. They're not on that. We're done, right? They are not analog to each other at all.
Right.
And I think there is a lot of that, right? But the principles work, but the principles maybe need to be applied differently. Like,
correct.
When you start bringing all these other trees in, you create something called shade.
Right.
And you're just talking about basic food forest establishment with your pioneer species and your productive species. Mm-hmm. But we may not need to go to the extensive level when you're dealing with tropical climates, very thin soils, of like, Lawton says 15 to up to even 20 to 1 pioneer to productive. We may not need to go that far.
Right. So like this step 3 could be things like integrating overstory carbohydrate drop trees, like the oaks, for instance, oaks and chestnuts. We could be including persimmon, even red mulberry. We can be adding these fodder trees in at this, phase 3, this step 3. So if we're going with more of like a savanna, kind of like strips of food forest, where we are hydrating our pastures and also drying them out, because these swales can serve dual functions. So let's say we've got a pasture situation where we actually want to dry out our pastures in the wintertime so we don't have major pugging going on and waterlogged soils. We want to actually get that water off and then shunt it out of the system during the wintertime into ponds where we can then put it back into the system with some low power pumping during the summertime, and we can moderate that seasonal rainfall, for instance. So maybe in that kind of a situation, we're adding things like overstory chestnuts and oaks so that, you know, a generation or two down the road, we are having tremendous amounts of fantastic free carbohydrates to fatten our livestock in the fall. That's kind of that step 3. Step 4, that's the monitoring, harvesting, managing. And then we are, you know, in that end game idea, we're scaling up to some higher value stuff. So that step 5 in this kind of silvopasture type situation might be, well, we've got, you know, all this mass drop, and now we have red wattle pigs, for instance. I'm just going to, you know, tell you a little bit of my fantasy. I've got red wattle pigs moving on the, being pushed through on the downhill side of a whole bunch of white oak and chestnut oak and sawtooth and hazels and chestnuts and persimmon and red mulberry, and they're fattening all summer on free carbohydrates that are dropping off of these trees. And I have chestnut and oak finished pork that gets cold smoked and traditionally cured. Like, it just gives me chills, man. and the cheap, the frugal part of me just, that just gets my jollies off knowing I don't have to pay for any of that, those carbohydrates. You want to talk about some amazing profit margins when you don't have the feed bill and you get to make a premium product at the same time.
Yeah.
Guys, it doesn't get any better than that.
Well, and that profit applies whether you're growing 4 pigs for your family, right, and you don't sell any for money because now you're eating a premium product you did not pay for, or if you're growing 80 of them and you're selling freaking 75 and you're making actual fiat bucks on the sale of that, you know. Either way, it's profitable. I try to get people to use that word differently than we've been conditioned to use. The whole purple breather crew thinks profit's a bad word. Every one of them wants to set up a nonprofit. And when you ask them why, they have no idea other than the big corporations are bad. And yeah, look at the jet the CEO of, you know, Red Cross flies around in, and his jet fuel bill, you'll never make that much money in your life, just his fuel bill for 1 year. Like, you're not thinking the right way about profit. Profit is a good thing. It's yield, accumulation of a surplus. It is a yield, right? And then yields are to be reinvested. And so that you start that again. You're talking about creating cascade effects, right? Having this this kind of top down or bottom up, depending on what direction you're coming from, and one begats the other. It creates this actual cycle, kind of like a
snowball.
Yeah. Let's move on and talk about your some of your packages you have. One you have, I don't even think I realized you had it this year until I dug a little deeper when one of your packages I posted about for you sold out. But you have the oak bonanza. And we can mention a little bit about acorns there. You go ahead and talk about it. I'll bring up the page with it on the screen while you do.
Cool. Yeah. So if I had to pick one, it's always going to be white oak. White oak is there at the bottom. They are a low tannin. They're fantastic. They're sweet. They're low tannin. That means you're going to have high digestibility with something like white oak, for instance. It's fan-freaking-tastic. the problem is we're talking like 15 to 20 years before they're really producing well. And you know, I want quicker returns than that. I do want to make sure that I am providing an inheritance to my children's children. I do think that society grows great when old men plant trees under whose shade they will never sit. Kind of gets me a little bit choked up. I'm gonna not talk about that too much, but that is very important to me as a man, as a father, as a husband. That is very important that we not be thinking selfishly and myopically about just what do I get out of it? What am I leaving to my next generations, right? Am I setting my kids up to be successful, right? Is this system going to be resilient years in the future? And that's why I added sawtooth oak. Now, the purists out there are going to get really upset about something like sawtooth oak because it is not a native. Well, yeah. I'm with Bill Mollison.
Yeah.
All of these trees are native to planet Earth.
Yeah.
And if I can utilize something that is going to kick ass and take names and build a tremendous amount of carbohydrates very quickly, we're talking optimistically, some of these sawtooths will be producing well in 4 to 6 years.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to bitch about it, like every Home Depot, Lowe's, mass market, box store parking lot in Texas has these things planted at every little island anyway. Like when people start on the like invasive, non-native, whatever, if it's already here, shut up.
It's already here. It's everywhere.
Already here.
They're here and they're everywhere because things like to eat them. Are they as palatable as white oak? Nope. But I'm not as concerned about that when I want to have that early production from those sawtooths while I'm waiting on the white oak and the chestnut oak to really pick up and be productive. And the chestnut, same kind of thing. It's going to be, the 15, sometimes 10 years to 20 years. But when you're looking at these, and I think I might have showed you a video of this chestnut oak. Those are pictures of a chestnut oak that I harvested from this last consulting tour. And I showed you, I think, a video where you could just hear it raining. The wind would blow and it would just like a machine gun going off. I did an assay underneath that one chestnut oak. And I think it was going to be like, I think it was about 25 square feet. I calculated there to be about 6 pounds of acorn in a 5 foot by 5 foot square section. And it was still loaded with acorns up in the canopy.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So when we're talking about production here, this is some serious mass drop. And when we add multiple different species, well, the white oak might produce well one year and nothing the next year. But we've got chestnut oak, we've got sawtooth oak, we have multiple different species that are able to drop this stuff. Now, if this is just for hunters, I literally have this priced at just about the same price that you find these trees in wholesale on like whitetail, feed plot sites. Mm-hmm. So when you look at the price point on this and you compare it to like 3 sacks of sweet feed, $60 to $75 for 3 sacks of sweet feed.
Yeah.
How long is a corn and soybean based sweet feed going to last your animals compared to 9 of these trees that are producing for over 100 years apiece? See,
and those of you that are looking at this going 15 years, 20 years, like those years are gonna pass anyway. Trust me.
Oh my gosh.
Right. They're gonna pass. And notice he's not telling you to go plant like 50 of these things by themselves. That's why we have these rapid production things like a sawtooth oak, but we also have things like a mulberry, things like a willow, right? It will blow your mind, given the right conditions, how quick a willow will grow and how big it will get in 1 year.
Yep.
And then as you establish that root base, if you're coppicing down low or pollarding, depending on what your goals are, once you start doing that, the growth actually accelerates. Like the first time you do it, it might take a while to come back, but as the tree kind of adapts to, this is the world I live in, and as those endostomatics or whatever the hell there's the stem cells basically form that gnarly head. Once that forms, man, and you cut that off, it's just like, it's almost like, you didn't cut me, did you, bitch? Let me show you something. And like it's like a porcupine putting up quills or something. Once
you can almost watch it grow.
Yeah, it's
like
it's
seriously,
an exaggeration, but not much, right?
Seriously,
like
if you were to take your phone out there and just set it up on a little tripod and do a time lapse over 10 minutes, I guarantee you would see growth during the summertime. You would see it grow over 10 minutes.
It's almost as bad. What were we talking about? I think we were talking about goji when you were here. And I said I cut one of those off and I looked at it seductively and a root popped out of it. Like it's just that easy to root, man. You know, and like once you get these trees established, because I do feel that Geoff, as much as I love the guy and as I respect him, I think he's a little bit oversold the whole cut 50% of the canopy, 50% of the roots prune off. That's not a thing. And once you get a certain mass of root and you give that tree that haircut, if you time it right where that tree is able to regenerate, it's got so much root mass and so little top, it's going to do a lot less pulsing off the bottom and a lot more balancing by reestablishment.
That's
you know, it's like if you've ever taken a pepper plant, pruned it back and dug it up out of the ground and put it in a flower pot over winter, because they're a short-lived perennial. They'll live 5 to 7 years in the right climate. When you put that plant, even though it's about the same size as your new started plant, in the garden in the spring, it goes 8. It takes off, and it's so far ahead of the plant. It was roughly the same size, but it's all about that root ball that's down there and all that embodied energy that it has to work with.
100%.
What hidden homestead problems can we talk about here using this? We kind of hit on it, but maybe hit a little bit more as we get toward the end, like your feed costs, your soil fragility. Biodiversity loss. We hear that all the time. I mean, we picked on the purple people a little bit, but they're not wrong about everything. They just maybe are too engrossed in things that they can't do anything about, right? Like biodiversity loss is a big deal. I was listening to somebody lament recently. This is kind of unrelated, but it's related in a way, about that. You know, some of these farmers are selling off a block of their farm and they're selling it to a solar company or putting solar panels in, and we're losing biodiversity. I bet you there's more biodiversity in the shade under that solar panel than a field that gets plowed every year and goes beans, corn, beans, corn, beans, corn. Right. Because it's creating a second layer effect, right? We're creating shade and permanent shade. We're creating water runoff. So a lot of these plants have similar and more natural functions than something like that.
Right. Yeah. So it's kind of like to take Geoff Lawton's Greening the Desert video, which iconic. If you haven't watched that, guys, if you're a listener and you have not watched that, please, for the love of everything holy, go watch that video. That will inspire you to no end. It is.
We talked about our genesis to permaculture. It was Bill Mollison's In Danger of Failing Food, and that. Those two together, like, okay, I'm going to do this.
Yep. So when you look at for instance, the Jordan Valley project, the Greening the Desert Jordan Valley project, he builds a functioning ecosystem, and it is far more biodiverse. And when we're talking about those function stacking, that is biodiversity. When we're talking about, like, for instance, the Oak Guild, or I've got a support guild that has numerous different species in there. They have different structures. They produce different things. They're going to grow at different rates. All of these things are producing a stack effect, and it's producing biodiversity. So they're helping do different things. They're building more and more and more edge. And the more of this edge that we can build into our systems, the more productive these things are going to be. So when we've got that built into the system from the get-go, what we're looking at is a system that is a little bit more set it and forget it. I'm a lazy guy. I don't like to do work that I don't have to do. If I can at all set it and forget it, boy, I'm pushing that easy button. And so when it comes to these living systems, the more we build them with edge, stacking functions, and biodiversity, the more of a complete, whole, resilient, and anti-fragile ecosystem we end up with. The more we have a set it and forget it, I don't have to worry about it nearly as much. And I get more productivity. I get more out of it with less input. I don't think we're ever going to get to the point where I don't have to do any work and I just go and I collect all the fruit and it's, it's back to Eden or whatever. I think that's just marketing. So I don't ever try and sell that to people. It's always going to be work. You're always going to sweat. It's going to suck. But if we're smart, we can make it suck less, right? So that's what I look at. I look at this, the feed expenses, the fragility, that's the dependency on outside systems, erosion, pests, a lack of resilience. So those are some of the biggest, hardest hitting, problems that you end up seeing that can be at least mitigated, if not completely rectified, by good design and by building that resiliency into the systems where we're growing this stuff. So if I'm buying, I just bought some really cool. I hope they work. I know you're right there with me on this. I want to grow sweet cherries.
Oh yeah,
but I can't friggin' grow sweet cherries. Well, I can grow pluots. I can grow pluries. They're a plum cherry hybrid that do well in zone 8. So I've got, $35 trees. Well, guess what? I'm not putting those in a blank slate ecosystem. I am putting those in a system that I've already established, that I've spent a couple years working on. I just bought them. They're in pots right now. They're going to stay in a pot for this year, maybe into next, because I want to put them into a good, healthy ecosystem. So they're staying in a nursery, they're getting babied, but they're going into an anti-fragile, support species dominated system where they've got some support. Instead of tying them up, I've got them, nestled in amongst a couple other things that are giving them support, so they're not falling over. So
one of the things I see in this space is the same pattern in a good way. Is the same pattern by different designers repeated over and over again, even if it's not exactly the same. So I had this thought probably 20 times in this discussion in an hour and 20 minutes so far. Brad Lancaster in Arizona, totally different type of environment, totally different meaning in a way by it. But what he always says is, before you plant the tree, plant the rain. It's the same mindset. It's just being like, since he's in a low xeriscape type atmosphere, he's urban, he's got hardscape everywhere. It's more about how he's channeling and creating wells of water, but he's still putting all the sport trees in there. And when you take and you create the like what you're calling an anti-fragile system here, part of that is because, so when it rains, instead of the rain slamming the ground, now it hits and it works its way through the canopy. It gently hits the ground. It's got shade, so you have a longer period where rainfall exceeds evaporation. That's the soil's more protected, but you've planted the rain. You just took the tree that could handle the vacancy and let it go first to make it more where you've planted the rain for the pluot or the bush cherry or whatever it is that you're going to put in there.
Yeah.
And let's get on that support guild real quick, right? Because I want people, I try not to make this show an infomercial for anybody, not even Nick, but I want you to kind of take in, if you're one of these people like me that likes to sit around with catalogs from Raintree and Gurney's and everybody else and look at plants and you know what they cost. The support guild he mentioned. So he's got 3 indigo bush, 3 hackberries, 3 Lombardy poplars, and 3 honey locusts, and that's $75. I dare you. I dare you to go to a catalog company and get that for $75. Right. Now, if you're going to buy 1,000 of them, you can.
Yeah.
Or even, if you're going to buy 200 each, you probably can. But if you're going to go out and buy 10 trees, 20 trees, 12 trees, 100 trees, but 8 different kinds, which you can do on Nick's site, you ain't paying that price for it.
No.
You can forget about it. Most of these trees are going to cost you somewhere between $20 and $50 a tree.
Yeah.
Some you can get for a little bit less, especially smaller seedlings. But I mean, that's another thing too. Your trees are fairly small, but there's a big advantage to that too. Not just from it's cheaper to ship and it's easier to manage and shipping and all, but from planting a tree that's small. There's a huge event. You want to talk about that real quick before we move on?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've got people, in all these years of doing consulting, I will have people that have the money to throw down $250, $500 a tree to get a great big bald burlap tree or potted.
Yeah.
Typically it's going to be potted.
Right. Four dudes moving it in, or a freaking cherry picker moving it in. Yeah.
Yep. Typically it's going to be what's called a 25-gallon trade pot, and it's almost 3 foot in diameter. And they're great big pots, and that tree has been growing in that for 5-6 years, and they think that they're buying time. Well, guess what? It's root bound. I can almost guarantee there are some feeder roots in there that have wrapped around that trunk and they're girdling, or they're wrapping around other roots, and you'll have them girdling themselves. And then you'll spend tons of money on that tree, and 10 years down the road, typically it's only going to be about at the most 5 years down the road. To compare that, if you plant 12 feet apart, treat them exactly the same, fertilize water exactly the same inputs, same space, planted 12 feet apart, and you put a bare root, 18-inch tall little tree right next to a 10-foot tall bald and burlapped or 25-gallon trade pot tree that's 8 feet tall. You put those in side by side, and about 5 years later, I can almost guarantee that bare root tree is going to be surpassing the health and the vigor and the size of the big expensive one. And typically at about 10 to 15 years old, those big trees that you had put in the ground and from pots or bald and burlap, they're going to die. And they're just going to, I don't know why it's dying. I don't know why it's, and then it kicks the bucket and you cut it out. If you were to dig that up, I will bet you money it will be girdled.
It will. That's the number one thing. They had to hire a landscaper who plants the tree too deep.
Yeah, that's
another thing. But like the other thing with the small trees is, if you want to plant 5 trees, I guess it ain't a big deal. But if you want to plant 500 trees, that's a lot of labor.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, if you've ever dug a hole for a tree that's even in like a 10-gallon pot, right? It's you're moving a lot of dirt.
Yep. Bruce.
And again, one tree, I don't care. It's not a big deal, but if you plan like this spring, I want to put in even 50 trees. Like you've gone from something you could do drinking a beer in a half a day to something you're going to work all weekend on and eat the whole bottle of Advil Sunday night.
Yep. Yeah. So
you can't get it done, but it's a lot more work. And when you have the small tree, you can put a lot more of that time into setting it up for success.
Yep.
Thinking about things like how to maybe trap a little more water or shed a little off if it's not going to like that or whatever it is. And if you have your support species and you want to give it shade and it's little while it's because you got to think about what we've done. right?
Yeah.
We grew the tree and it was happy. Maybe it wasn't really going to be happy, but it didn't know that. Maybe it's because they're all planted so close together, right? When you're trying to maximize production. But then we yanked it out of the ground while it was asleep. We cut the roots off it, stuck it in a box at Nick's house, and sent it to your house in Georgia, right? And now we stick that little tree in the ground, and it's like, grow tree. Well, the first thing that tree does is wake up and go, who the fuck put me here? Right? What is this crap? And so it might be good if that tree had a bit of that support around it, because when you do that with a mulberry or a freaking willow, it's like, I know what to do. I got this. Yeah, you know, and the roots go out and it just starts. But some of these other trees that require a little bit more help in the beginning, having them small and letting those other support trees kind of mother them. Yeah, that's a huge advantage. And if you stick a 10-foot tree in there, you don't get that.
Right.
Let alone just what happens. How many times have you seen the south side bark?
Oh yeah,
one of these new trees just roasted.
It's
like
dead.
Like you just, and then that whenever you see the grasshoppers come eat your trunk of your tree, folks, it's about to die. Grasshoppers do not eat the trunks of trees unless that tree is extremely stressed and it's off-putting sugars that basically say, "Please kill me so I don't have to be here anymore."
Yep.
Yeah, because I've seen trees just girdled. By grasshoppers.
From grasshoppers. Yeah.
But there's a tree sitting right next to it, same species. They don't touch it.
Just on the time savings alone and the ease of getting these trees in the ground. I did a consult for a guy that comes to just about every single one of the fall TSP workshops. Bruce.
Yeah.
I was in South Louisiana and I helped him plant a bunch of the trees that he bought from me. And so he's getting ready to dig these holes. And I was like, no, what are you doing? No, we don't do that. He's like, well, how should we plant them? So I took a shovel and I wiggled it back and forth and I opened up a slit in the ground. I jabbed it in there and I stepped on the side of the hole and closed it. He was like, what? He was blown away. He's like, that was worth everything just for that one tip. Because
and then you have
all the trees planted just like that.
Natural stratification either, right? Because you dig this hole up, you mix it all in, you throw some enhancement in there, and your hole that's 2 times the size of the root ball, like everybody tells you to do, and you created this fake environment. Yep. And as soon as that tree bridges out of that fake environment, now it's got to readapt.
Yep. It's going to hit the sides of that loose soil and start circling.
Yeah. Yeah, but when you just give it no choice, but hey, this is where you live now, then it adapts and it sends out those roots laterally and hard, and that taproot down and hard, and it anchors that little tree. And then you know what else you're not doing? You're not staking it, right? And if you are, let's say you're in an area with some soft soils, heavy winds or something, then it's like it's a piece of bamboo and one tie until it gets a couple days. That's it. Where if we're putting in 8-foot, 10-foot started trees, we're doing the whole 4-way down guy type anchoring and stuff like that. And we have to, because the winds that big tree is going to get moved in that wind. It's going to waddle the hole. And you swear to God, you put it in straight, but next year you notice that tree's growing on like a 20-degree angle to the west or something. And that's because your wind comes from the east.
Yep.
You don't get any of that with these smaller trees. And I think that's it costs less. It's easier to plant. It survives better. And if you start thinking a little like a CEO, instead of worrying about, this one died, you do the math where you say, well, planted 100 trees and it cost me $250 and half of them died. I planted 10 trees and it cost me $250 and half of them died. Right? Am I worried about the fact that 50 died in one and only 12 died in the other, or I'm worried about how many trees are still left? Right? What I always teach about money, it's not what you earn, it's what you keep that matters.
That's right.
It's the same philosophy. You worked harder, you had a higher survival rate, but you got less trees and you spent more money.
Yep.
You worked less, you had higher number of deaths, but you got more trees and you spent less money.
Yep. It's basically
not a difficult decision when you look at it that way.
No. Yeah. So like with a lot of like the support guild, for instance, it's the indigo bush, the hackberry, Lombardy poplar, and the thornless honey locust. So you could literally just kind of take your shovel and make a triangular series of slits in the ground and plant all 3 right next to each other in a triangle pattern and be done, and then propagate from those.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most of these are really easy to propagate. And then you kind of baby that triangle. Maybe it's a very small area and it's your nursery, it's your mother plants, and you get those growing, and that you take that indigo bush and you make 250 cuttings off of it, after the first year of them being in the ground. And now I have my whole kind of my zone 2, kind of my fruit bushes and a little bit of my vining stuff. And I've got this more resilient zone 2 gardening system that I planted out for, I don't know, it's going to be $20 worth of indigo bush, but I planted a 2,000 square foot area the next year. And if one or two of them die, okay, if you bought one of them for $20-25 and it dies, you got nothing. You put the 3 in the ground and all but one of them dies, you're still in the green. So what I try to do with these is I try to price them at a little bit above what you would end up paying if you were buying them from a wholesaler. And then I just add on shipping on top of that. But one of the real big value adds you're getting is, that someone who knows about this stuff actually curated this pack. It is selected so that they are useful. So it is a thornless honey locust. Now they will make seed pods, and Bill Mollison has a famous story about this. They will make seed pods and they will make thorny honey locust. So if this is just a support guild and I'm coppicing this stuff, it's going to keep coming up with that apical growth that's going to be relatively almost 100% free of thorns. But again, we've got great nitrogen production out of something like that. So I think this kind of stuff, if you think about, for instance, the support guild, it's $75. If you think about $75 worth of infrastructure in the form of ties as support, literal supports to prop up your fruit trees, you're going to spend $75 on those supports anyways. I might as well have something that stacks functions, that builds soil health, that builds resiliency, that prevents half of your fruit tree cambium from just baking in the southern sun and dying and introducing fungal and insect damage. And then the whole tree dies because, oops, I forgot to put the paint on the southern side of it. If you've got the nursery trees, the support guild already in place, you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. I think that's another thing too. Like, you establish these trees, and some of them are very easy to reproduce. And you said you take 100 cuttings off of the indigo bush, 50 of them died. You don't care.
It's a terrible business practice, Jack. It's terrible business practice. You always talk about people hating money. I really feel like sometimes when I'm teaching people how to propagate this stuff that I hate money, because I'm giving you all of the ammunition to never buy trees from me again.
But we used to, in consulting, though, we used to teach our business clients that way, and we refer to it as getting off therapy. Like, you don't want the therapist that wants you on therapy for the rest of your life. That means they never helped you.
That's right. So that it ties into one of my big overarching missions in life is to see as many people as resilient and prepared for the future, because I'm concerned with the way things are going, and I try to not dwell on the stuff that is happening in the world, because there's not a whole lot I can do about what's going on over there. But I can focus and I can have an effect on what's going on in my backyard, and this kind of stuff is going to end up helping a tremendous number of people. And if I end up seeing sales decline in the future, hey, it is what it is. I'll roll with the punches and do something else. But if I can help a lot of people get set up with systems that will feed their families if times get tough, or even if they don't. That's my overarching mission.
Yeah, and I think that'll work out. There's a lot of people to get to that point before you have to worry about not having customers anymore. Anyway, real quick, I want everybody to know, if you want to get some stuff from Nick, you just jump over to rareplantstore.com. He's got all these different packages available. Most of them there's still some stock, and some of this stuff I'm looking at it while we're talking, and they're down to like 6 in stock or whatever. So if you want to pick some of this stuff, you may want to get over there. We got the fodder tree packages. We've got some perennial package, oak bonanza that we talked about, a fruit and nut package. We got a bacon tree package. That's because it's good for growing pigs. We got a fuel wood guild, the support guild that we were talking about. You can even pick up strawberries and some other stuff there. Definitely check this out. Again, rareplantstore.com. And I'll put in the plug for Nick. I asked Nick, with Katie pregnant, could he still make this date for this show? And he said, those diapers aren't going to buy themselves. So he does have baby number 4 coming up. Now, I hate to break it to you. I know you already know this. There's 2 things diapers don't do for themselves. One is they don't buy themselves, and 2, they don't change themselves.
They don't change themselves.
They don't change themselves. But he's fixing to be dad again for the 4th time, a little girl. So he probably wouldn't hurt to have a little bit of extra business this year. So if you have any spaces that you think, hey, it'd be better if there's some trees there than the way it is now, get on over there. And I promise you, if you're looking in catalogs again, like Gurney's and Rain Tree and all, they may have some cool shit that you can't really get anywhere else, especially like Rain Tree and whatnot. But the stuff that we know works, the stuff that's bulletproof, if you just follow the instructions and take care of it for the first season, that's what you get for Nick. And you're going to have prices. You just forget about those catalogs. I'm just going to say it. Forget about it, because it's not even, when you're paying $18 for a goji plant that's 8 inches tall and looks like somebody stepped on it when you take it out of the box. There's no comparison.
Go look at the prices on fast growing trees.
Yeah, go there. Ooh. Go to freaking, Tractor Supply and look at the shit that's not even going to grow in a box stapled through the tree on the shelf, and they're $12, $18. And you look at it, and if you know anything about plants, you're like, that thing's been dead for months. Really? You know what I'm talking about? I did see one the other day, and it was something that was at least a little bit interesting to me. And I picked it up, and the top of the bag, it's like a kind of like half box, half bag, and it was stapled shut. And it was stapled right through, and the stem's smaller than my pinky, and it's stapled through the tree. It's like, yeah, you don't want that.
Pick it up, expect some weight, and it's just like, whoop, there's 2 ounces dry. Because it's bone dry.
So anyway, we're going to go to questions. I just don't know how long we're going to do this. This has never happened before. I got 23 questions. And some of them are like long questions. So let's try to here was my original plan when I saw how many questions were coming in. I was going to cut and paste them all and just say, let's have you back on and we'll answer the questions in another episode. And I may have to take the time, but if I close this back end of StreamYard right now, I'll have to dig through the replay of the chat to find them again. And I can't I never tried because I never had this many in one go. I can't cut and paste them. It won't let me highlight them. I guess I could go through and screenshot the shit, right? But let's try to answer some of them, and maybe that's what we'll do. You got a lot going on. I don't want to keep you too long. Dowie, we all know Dowie. John Dowie says, I have a swamp area. There's about 25 feet of land between swamp and road. Want a guerrilla garden and orchard, zone 5A. What trees will do close to the wet part? Neighbors are on board with the trees.
If we're talking about an orchard as in apples and peaches and pears, just about none of them.
Yeah.
None of them like wet feet. You're going to have to utilize less optimal things like willow. I have coming down the pike. I don't have them ready yet. I have a couple different types of white mulberry that are literally growing in standing water.
Yeah,
I did some stun method and I have a couple selections that are taking to propagation pretty well. So those are going to be coming, in a year or 2 or possibly 3. Just depends on how things ramp up. But I would be looking at more of the support species that you can utilize for other things, like making biochar, like feeding your ducks or your other animals, like making good compost with the Johnson-Su bioreactor, for instance. So that's how I would be using kind of marginal, swampy type ground.
And I got some stuff that'll handle the wet that's productive, but not that I know would survive the cold ass climate in New Hampshire that he's in. I've got some stuff that would do well in shade too with other trees, but not up there. I'd say one thing you can do though to lower that water table is start planting any trees. Trees are giant hydraulic pumps. I mean, if again, I'm more familiar with the South, but down here I'd put cypress in there. And it loves it, but it's also going to pull a lot of water up, and then maybe on the edges you can get some more production. Village says, I have about 18 ewes. And for y'all from Pennsylvania, he doesn't mean people, he means sheep. And about 6 acres that we rotationally graze. What are your recommendations on fodder trees? How resilient are those young trees to animal pressure? Now
so the last question, how resilient are they to animal pressure? These are giant chocolate cakes in the middle of a fat camp. Okay. They're gonna be gone. So if you're gonna grow these fodder trees, it's like pockets and checkbooks with politicians at a fundraiser. That's all they have eyes for. So they have to be fenced off, they have to be protected. So they are not at all resilient. You're going to have to protect them. It is going to be crack. They will want them so stinking bad. So you're going to have to fence it off. You're going to cut it. You're going to harvest it. You can just throw it right over the fence to them. They'll strip all the leaves off. You don't have to do any processing. If you have excess in the summertime, you can hang it up to dry in the shade. Makes fantastic hay for winter feeding, or you can run it through a chipper shredder and shred it and pack it in something like a 5-gallon bucket, smash it all down, add a little bit of sugar, and you can ferment that as silage or silage, however you pronounce it. So that's what I recommend on something like that.
Yeah, I mean, your other option, I guess, would be to protect them early on, grow it above the browse line, and use more of a pollard approach.
Pollarding, yeah. But but that is also a little bit iffy. Depending on the minerals, if they're deficient in minerals, they will strip the bark off just like that and completely girdle the trees and kill them.
Yeah, good point. So if you're going to try that approach, that would take years to get established anyway. But if you're going to try that approach, free choice mineral would be a way to help protect with that. A question: are black cherries truly deadly to rabbits for tree hay without leaves? Without leaves,
I don't.
The thing where you give them a stick to chew on, is that what he's talking about? I don't know.
I don't know. Whenever it comes to stuff like that is at all questionable, I've always had an abundance of other things that aren't questionable. So I never had a rabbit that I disliked enough to just be
I was just going to say, there it is.
Hey, buddy, we're going to find out today.
Take one of your bunnies and put him in an isolation cage and feed him a bunch of it and see what happens, right? You know?
So I don't know. I've never tried, and I hate to just repeat stuff I've read on the internet.
Do you have one that bites you?
Right?
Like Carl. Someday we're not going to do it today because we've got so much to do, but somebody will have to tell the story of Carl, the chicken that left Jack's house but never got to Nick's house.
Don't tell that story.
He went out the window somewhere about Tyler. Anyway, Bruce says, what percentage of rabbit fodder can be dry oak leaves? I have tons of oak leaf every year. I
don't like live oaks, or it's very, very high tannin. And it's especially the dry live oak leaves, they might eat them, but it's not going to have very much value nutrition wise. It's going to retain the tannins. It's going to lose the protein and the carbohydrates. So like the nutrition is going down while the tannin, the anti-nutrients are staying high. I wouldn't even touch it.
Okay. How close to plant your fodder trees in a pasture on contour rows? 12 inches? No. Grazing sheep and chickens in the pastures.
So if this is on contour rows, like let's say we're doing some swales, even if they're mini swales, and we are fencing the animals off of the trees, so they are excluded from the trees. That's the only time I'm going to recommend doing this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, not the only time. But if we're planting them in rows and it's meant to be coppiced, we're excluding the animals, you can plant them at 12 inches.
Yeah, I read that wrong. I thought they meant the rows 12 inches apart.
Yeah.
Not okay. Yeah.
Not the spacing, the interval.
Yeah, I got it now.
You can plant them at 12-inch intervals. They will eventually get big enough that you will have to success every other one out.
Yeah.
So if we're planting at like end game spacing, and I'm going to be like pollarding this and just dropping branches down to the animals. I'm going to go on a goat walk or a sheep or a cow walk, and I'm just going to be reaching up there with a pole pruner. Yeah. Then whatever spacing, makes your socks go up and down. I don't care. Yeah. Could be 12-foot spacing. But if you're planting rows to try and get as much dang productivity out of this as possible, and I'm going to be running, temporary electric fencing as like cell grazing blocks with my whatever sheep and chickens in the pastures. If I'm like, for using chickens, it's going to be electronet. If we're doing that and grazing in between these rows, then shoot, I mean, I've got my trees planted at 6-inch intervals. If you're just buying them from me, what I always recommend people do is get the trees from me. If you're getting them from me, and put them in a nursery and then start propagating those out, because you're going to get a ton done if you do that.
I think it has a lot to do with how you plan to manage as well. If like it's never going to be anything other than a bush is what it's going to look like. Like you said, you can be super tight if you're going to be doing more of a management where like your whole process is to take things off. And I like to manage trees like that at about my shoulder level because it's really comfortable to cut branches. But I'm making more firewood that way than fodder. So it's more about how you're going to manage it, I think. But yeah, sorry for picking on you there, BRS 11s. When I said no, I thought you were talking about rows 12 inches. That would be a bit tight. I don't know what a bitch that would be. No,
that would be every 2 foot on those contour rows would be a nice spacing.
Yeah. What would you say for your spacing between rows to get in there and be able to work?
The rows, I don't really have my rows of any tighter than 10 foot apart.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I would agree with that too. Is it possible to preserve apple cuttings? I have a golden delicious tree. The rabbits ate the bark off of. I'm wondering if I can do some cuttings now in case I get suckers growing back.
Absolutely. If it's still dormant and it hasn't started pushing sap, then you need to take those scionwood cuttings ASAP. Yeah. You can do what is called bark bridging, and you can bridge those girdled spots. It's a little bit more difficult, but if you do have suckers come up, you absolutely can graft on top of those suckers. The problem is those suckers are gonna have to grow a little bit more before you could graft directly on them with like a whip and tongue or a cleft graft. So what you're probably going to be looking at doing is taking those the first year growth off of the top of that apple tree, cutting it, and then doing a bark graft down low. It's not going to be the most ideal thing, but you might be able to salvage it by cutting them, cut it down low, and immediately graft it while it's dormant.
Okay. How do I keep sprouts from the base of my fodder trees that I want a single trunk to pollard?
Yeah, just I like going out there once every couple of days and just rubbing off any sprouts. Select one and you let it grow and you let it get big and tall. Then it will assert what's called apical dominance. It will start sending hormones down to the base to prevent it from growing so much. Getting shade on the base is going to be the biggest thing that you can do. So surrounding it with other support species that are going to shade the base so that the top can pollard. Otherwise, if it's livestock, the livestock will snip off any of those shoots from the bottom.
Once you get the crown up, you don't have to worry about if you got stock coming through. What that actually makes me think of, I can't remember the guy's name. I know John DeLue was the demographer, the film guy that filmed it for the first time. There's a dude in Africa. He's regreening the desert in a different way, and all he does, he has all these folks trained, and they just basically cut all so you have this desert, and you have these looks like little bushes everywhere, and they're constantly grazed to the ground, poorly managed, but they keep coming back forever. And all they do is go out and cut all but one off and get it up. And it's all native trees that they don't plant any of them. And once they get up to a certain spot, then they're managed as fodder, just like we're talking about.
Yep.
And so it might sound laborious, but you kind of have to do it if that's what you want.
Yeah. What's happening there?
It works really fast too if you do it, though. If you stay on it for a season or two.
Yep.
Once that dominant gets there, it doesn't even matter that much.
Yep.
How do I keep that's the same question. I don't know how we're going to get through all this shit. How do I increase the growth and survival of hybrid poplar and lacebark elm? They stayed in the first day sleep mode at best, whatever that means. Mostly clay soil, 6A, 48.9 degrees north.
Yeah. So first they sleep, then they creep, then they leap is kind of like an old adage. First year, a lot of plants will just kind of sit there and not do anything. They're just existing.
Yeah.
So increasing the growth and survival, mulch, fertilization, and water. If they have too much water, they need better drainage. So it's the kind of the same blanket advice that I give for any tree, any shrub. Make sure the soil is staying cool, temperate, moderate. Mm-hmm. So if it's cold, maybe open up the mulch a little bit and let some warmth get into the soil, so it thaws out in the springtime, so you have a longer growing season, and then get it covered. If we keep the soil covered with some kind of mulch, it's going to stay more moist. The soil is going to stay cooler. We're going to have more microbial life and activity. The roots are going to be healthier. We're not going to be cooking the roots. So if the soil is exposed and bare, it's probably dry and hot during the summertime when it needs to be cooler and moist. So those are feed them, water them, and keep the soil cool and moist.
All right. Are there any fodder trees or perennials that are good for chickens? We got 9, and I'm planting the garden from episode 2792, growing your own poultry feed. Are there any perennials that work too?
Yeah. Any of the things in the bacon tree pack, they will like a lot. The fruit and nut, they'll like those. I mean, they're not gonna open up the let me look at them real quick.
I'm bringing it up right now for you. The bacon tree, we sold one of those already while we were talking, because it said 6 in stock when we started, and it's 5 now. If that gives you some impetus, folks. But yeah, I mean, chickens love mulberry. They're
yeah,
but they want the berries.
And anything that they can peck open. Now, if we've got the fruit and nut, so the Chinese chestnut, if you take those chestnuts and just like run over them with a vehicle, it's going to split them open, and they'll peck out the meat. So either of those they're going to like. Same with the acorns. If you just run over a whole bunch of that mast on the ground with something even like a lawn tractor, just so they're cracked open, they'll chow down on the oaks. The fodder trees, both the willow and the white mulberry, they love it. They will get more out of the white mulberry. That's why I have more available in the fodder tree pack. But any of those leafy green things, we're not talking about really any much more than about 20% of their diet. But I mean, a 20% reduction in your feed costs for chickens, that's nothing to sneeze at, you know?
Yeah. And will black soldier fly eat mulberry leaf?
Oh yeah.
So that
heck
changes
yes.
the calculus, right?
Oh yeah. So any of that excess from those fodder trees, and I've talked about this on the uh the November workshops.
Yeah.
Black soldier fly larvae, any of that excess, you feed it to them, they're going to produce high protein, high fat, amazing poultry feed. That's one of my backbone
Yeah.
feed store replacement systems is black soldier fly larva, and
Yeah,
it
and then
works.
you get into
It
this
fits
whole function
perfect.
stacking thing we were
Yep.
talking about. So you take the black soldier fly bin and you put your leaves in there and all your other waste, all the stuff you don't want to go in your compost, your greasy shit, your meat that's left over and rotted or whatever, carcass of a chicken you
Or
processed.
or a
They,
rabbit that I fed
yeah,
the willow in mulberry.
yeah, and then what's left of him that the dog don't want or whatever because it's his intestines or whatever, you throw that in there. They process that. They take the frost from the black soldier fly and throw it in the worm bin, and then the worms reprocess it and upgrade it to an even higher end. And then we take those worm castings and put them at the foot of the tree where the whole thing started.
Yep.
See, and you start to understand the holistic nature of what he's trying to teach you if you think about it that way, folks. I mean,
It's a complete cycle.
Yep. Yeah, and it just like, what's your entropy at that point? There's always some, but boy, you have fought the good. We cannot defeat entropy. Sooner or later, the sun will turn into a giant red orb and absorb the Earth, and then shrink down into like a little neutron star or some shit. So there is entropy, but what our purpose is to, in the most proactive way possible, slow it down as much as we can. And you've really slowed it down at that point. You're now feeding animals. Like one guy that just wrote in, now he's using an offsite input, but last week he's doing quail, and his quail are living like 60% of their calories come from black soldier fly larvae.
Yeah.
And his main food input is coffee grinds that come out of the break room where he works.
Yep.
Right? Like, that's the thing. Like, even with all the stuff we're talking about, look for the waste streams around you, man. Nick, I used Espoma organic plant tone, all-purpose plant food last pepper season. I had a good, somebody asked about peppers. Had a good yield. Did I do a disservice to my soil using a product every 2 weeks?
No, I think that's a great product. It is not my favorite product, but that is something you can get at Walmart, on Amazon. You can get it at just about any big box store. They make a good product. It's probably number 3 on my list of recommended products, just simply because of its availability. But it has a really good solid base. It's organic. It's built on things like chicken manure and guano and soft rock phosphate, which is top notch. It's good stuff.
And I'm gonna do something for pepper people here, and I am known as the pepper whisperer. I'm gonna say this once, and I'm not gonna say it again. Once the plant's well established and nice and big and happy, once every 2 weeks, worm casting extract, not even tea. 1 handful in a bucket, mix it up, throw the castings out in the garden, spray the leaves, get it underneath. Just a simple sprayer at night. Well, not at night. Late, you can still see, but the sun's gone.
Yep.
Once every 2 weeks for the main part of your pepper season. That's one of the secrets of the pepper whisper. Someday maybe it'll be a book.
When those stoma open up.
Yep. What are your criteria or circumstances that determine whether you coppice or pollard? And how do you determine how high you pollard? How tall are you?
Yep. So that's going to the kind of the lowest common denominator there is going to be the animals that are grazing. So if I'm trying to protect it from deer, for instance, and you've got Pennsylvania deer, well, you're going to have to go higher than Louisiana deer, right? If I've got a really good perimeter fence, I've got livestock guardian dogs patrolling the whole entire area. They have access to everything. And I'm not really concerned about the deer. They're going to come in and eat some stuff. They're going to jump my fence. That's okay. The dogs aren't going to chase them all off. I have venison in the fall that are coming in to eat the yummy stuff. Maybe I want to pollard it at a height that the deer can still reach it, but my sheep can't.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's really going to be determined a lot by the browse grazing height of whatever livestock they're going to have access to the plant the most time. You also want to think about the ease of maintenance and management. I really don't like reaching up high overhead with tools. And you also want to be thinking about end of life or later in life succession. So think about the number one workplace injury for most industries is falls from ladders. Falls. So you're on uneven ground. You've been building soil, so it's really soft and squishy, and you get up on a ladder, and all of a sudden, the mole or vole or whatever that had been digging underneath one of those ladder feet, you didn't realize, and it goes, and you go off the ladder downhill, and you fall 4 feet, and you're 70 years old, and now you're laid up for 2 weeks in a hospital. Not the best system to have designed from the get-go. So think about, am I designing this in such a way that I have to get up on a ladder to manage it? If the answer is yes, you probably want to rethink that. So I say, if it's sheep, find out how high they're going to be able to reach, go just above that, and then start managing it up there.
And when you look at a deer on your property and say that's an adult deer, that's how high they can reach. No, it's not.
They're going to stand.
They will stand up on their back legs, and they're better at it than you think they are. And the hungrier they are.
Yeah, sheep are not as prone to standing up as goats are. So if you have goats,
they can't stay up as long anyway.
Right? Yeah.
A deer could just hang out there, man, and I've seen them do it.
Just walking around on their back legs.
And they're not a big animal, but they're a much taller animal than, let's say, a 120-pound dog and a 120-pound deer have a very different height at the shoulder. And that long leg, when they stand up, they're taller than the average person when they stand up. So if you can put your hand on it, and you're in like a northern climate, like Nick's saying, the size of the deer up there, that deer can probably reach what you can touch. So
it's kind of like me. I'm half leg.
Yeah, you are. You got long legs, I got a long middle. Let's see. That is the one we just did. I have been unsuccessful rooting white mulberry from cuttings. I have one large tree I'm trying to propagate from. Any tips?
Yeah. White mulberry is a little bit more difficult to root from cuttings. If you're going to be successful with it, you're gonna need to get an intermittent mist system, and it might, you're just gonna have to get an intermittent mist system going. That's the way to get those really propagated well. If you're okay with a slightly longer timeline, just get some seed. Cold stratify the seed. You're going to need to soak and drain. I think it's going to take about 3 times of draining off the effluent. And I think I typically do about a 24-hour soak, and then I drain it, put fresh water back in there, and I'll do that about 3 times at the very start, and then they go into cold, moist stratification for, I think off the top of my head, it's 120 days, but I'd have to double check that figure. But you can look up cold stratification figures for white mulberry. That is going to be the way to get the most number of trees growing the cheapest. It's just going to take you like a year or 2 longer in the big timeline as compared to rooting them.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the site that I used to recommend for getting tree seeds like that.
Sheffield's,
that's it. Sheffield's. That's if you want to get really good deals on some of this stuff as far as seed, and you have the patience for it, like Nick's saying. That's where I used to get Antonovka seed for Antonovka apples. Yeah, but intermittent mist to work there. And you probably want to start when things get tough, rooting, a little rooting hormone helps a lot too.
Oh yes, absolutely. You're going to need to use rooting hormone.
Very careful with it.
Yep.
Very careful, especially the liquid. The powder that's just a direct, you basically tip dip into the little jar, that's not so much to worry about. But the liquid stuff, it burns and it doesn't hurt, which is worse.
Well,
Because it doesn't hurt at first because you don't know what's happening.
Well, what people need to understand about these rooting hormones is they are pretty much herbicides.
Yeah.
Herbicides do the same kind of thing. It's very similar mode of action, and they make it overgrow itself.
Yeah.
Until it just dies.
Yeah.
It's like a strobe light of green, like go, 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 and it hormonally signals it to go, grow, 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 and it just metabolically.
It's like a cancer cell. It doesn't know to die, and therefore, when it dies, it dies all the way. Right?
So be careful with rooting hormone stuff, guys. Use good PPE. Look up the MSDS stuff on it, and understand what you're dealing with.
And I just say, if you're not going to be doing it, if you're going to do a ton of it, the liquid is probably the way to go, and you buy it as a concentrate and you dilute it. If you're going to be doing a few cuttings here and there, that powdered stuff a lot easier to use.
Yep.
Do elm tree? Go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I like dip and grow. If you're just going to do like a little one-off kind of thing, dip and grow will give you a lot of range in the parts per million, which will allow you to actually get more different species rooted with one little bottle than a tub of like hormone, because it's going to be either 1,000 ppm or 3,000 or 8,000 or whatever. So it's really hard to get a higher concentration if you've got it at 1,000 ppm. You can't.
Gotcha. Do elm trees have use as forage?
Yes, they do. I've used lacebark elm in fodder tree packs in the past. I plan on doing that in the future as well. I've got them on my property as fodder for my animals. They're not a big portion of it, but I think of it like a salad. I don't want just like iceberg lettuce in a salad. I really don't want iceberg lettuce at all. But like, I want some romaine. I want some arugula. I want some, I want a bunch of different
spinach and some dandelion. And
I want a bunch of different things in my salad, and I want my animals to have a bigger selection of things to eat. So I like elm. Some of them are less palatable than others, just with the texture of the leaf. But lace bark is pretty well tolerated.
Okay. What is the most efficient way to process acorns for human consumption? Don't. We have a ton of red and white oak out here in East Texas. Well, start off with don't bother with the red. It's going to take too long. You burn more calories than you ever get out of it. You can add to this, but basically the way that the natives always did this is they focused on white oak because it's a lot lower tannin.
Yep.
You have to break them open, separate shells, and then they actually soak them in water and push it out, and soak them in water and push it out. And so
to get the tannin
do that until the water runs completely clear. And when you taste it, it's not an immediate bitter that makes you want to puke your guts out. Then you do it 3 more times. Right. Or go to Amazon and order acorn flour. Right. Like if you wanted to do this on a large level, there is commercial processing equipment to do it with. If you want to do it as a backup, do it the old school Indian way, and you'll have a whole new respect for a lot of other plants. Because I think there's potential with breeding, and I know some people are working on it to eventually breed white oaks that are so low tannin they don't require this processing. But I've done it, and it's a lot more work than you think it is. Do you have any shortcut to this? Because I don't.
There's really no shortcuts to it. What I would say, I mean, if you're in East Texas, just plant some hazelnuts and chestnuts and grow those instead. They're pretty much the same with none of the extra hassle. Chestnuts would be a fantastic replacement for oak. You get more meat out of the thing. It's a
hell of a lot easier.
It's a heck of a lot easier.
You can open them with a pocket knife. Really, I mean, it's like a chestnut,
or it's two of them together and just squeeze
them. A nutshell, right? I mean, you can just and pull it off. Yeah. Let's see. When's the right time to do this spring? I think he's talking about coppicing. I think that's where we were at when you were there.
So So it depends on what part. So every winter we take it back to its zero state. So it's static reset state. So if we're coppicing, which is probably what we're talking about, then coppicing is going to be taking it back down to a stump. We're going to do that in the dead of winter. I want to do that when they're dormant, and then all that leftover that is first year growth. If that's willow, for instance, and you've got some nice,
just so you know,
branches.
He followed up pollard. He also says pollard now before the tree breaks dormancy. So put all that together.
Yeah. So if this is coppicing or pollarding, we're gonna do that in the winter when everything's dormant. We don't want to. I was too busy this winter. I wanted my fodder trees to all be cut down and reset to zero. This winter we had a very brief spell of really cold weather. I had too much going on, couldn't do it. With the baby coming and the nesting and you have to do all the things or else I'm going to lose my ever-loving mind. I prioritized a happy, healthy family and marriage and home instead of cutting my trees down. So guess what? My white mulberry is all 8 foot tall right now because I missed my window. If I cut them after the sap is running, they will bleed themselves to death. That sap will just pump right out of them. And I did that 1 year with some of them. I was a little bit late. I got like most of my rows done, and one of them was like a week later. And I had about a 25% loss on those trees from them just bleeding themselves out. Now I end up with hardier stock, but do it in dormancy. And then you're going to want to let them grow, and don't harvest everything during the growing season to harvest as animal feed. Give them a good at least 50% of remaining leaves to continue producing sugars to regrow.
What are they doing then on these? Like a lot of the studies I've read on mulberry and its yield compared to, let's say, a hayfield or something, are being done in the tropics where they don't have that winter. When are they doing that? How are they getting around that problem?
They are probably just they're probably doing it in phases. Now, if we're just taking that mulberry and cutting it down during the active growing season, we're a lot less likely to have that issue.
I got you. You're saying it's budded, but it's not going yet. That's the bad time.
Yeah.
We do pull from them in the middle of the growing season, and that's
right.
Okay.
Right. So if I were in the tropics, I would be harvesting periodically, and I wouldn't be harvesting the whole thing down to a stump. So that there's always some green growing, and it's going to shunt some of that sap to the active growing stuff, and it's not just going to keel over all at the same time.
So Joy of Homesteading says, how do I balance fodder trees and grass for small scale sheep pasture? I have a ton of full grown white mulberry trees on my property. That's kind of hard to get a lot of fodder off because it's way up in the air.
Right.
But there's also no grass growing under them from all the shade. That also may be no grass growing up under them because that's where all your animals are hanging out because it's really hot and it's nice there.
Right.
But how would you even answer that? Because one of the reasons we're talking about establishing these things is so that you control the long-term structure of the tree. Because like you said, we don't want to go up a ladder to get some tree hay.
That's right.
That's a young man's game. I'm old now. If I fall, I'm probably dead.
Right.
I used to bounce. Now I just go in the hole.
Yeah. So I would say if they're full grown trees, then you could start slowly pruning them down to a manageable size. Most likely they're not going to take to it too well. So what I would be doing is I would just pollard them, and I would use a pole saw or pole pruner, and I would start pollarding them at maybe 75%, and then maybe step back a portion of that every year, and not take everything down until I can get it to a more manageable pollarded height. But what we're talking about is starting with some bare root trees that are like 18 inches tall. You get them in the ground and they start growing, and we keep managing them at ground height. So it builds up that kind of callus material that's full of those plant stem cells, the meristematic cells, the undifferentiated cells that can turn into shoots and leaves and all the stuff. And all those cells kind of cluster together in that scar tissue. And so we have this big old gnarly lump of scar tissue at the stump that is ready and waiting. It's like a runner, braced for the gunshot at the race. All those shoots are ready to go in that stem cell kind of stump. And when we have that set up like that, it's a whole bunch of racers ready to go. And as soon as they get the trigger of, hey, there's not a whole bunch of leaves, we need leaves, then it goes boom, and it just shoots them up.
Yeah. So, and I mean, I would also say, like in this one, mature is a relative term. So what do you mean mature? Do you mean mature that I've put my arms around it and barely get my hands together? Leave it alone, right?
Right. Yeah.
You mean mature is, and it's about as big around as my bicep. Then, I'll pollard that at the right time at, about head height or shoulder height. It all depends. If they're that big, you're probably better off buying some trees and planting them and managing those for your sheep, because your whole life will be easier. I know it's tempting because like it's right there and it's already, but that's a different design element.
Yeah.
That's a very precious design element that nature used a lot of temporal capital to build. And you're probably, if mature means what it means to me, you're probably better off leaving them alone.
Yeah. If we're talking about an 8 to 12 inch diameter tree, then I'd leave them alone. And I would actually get a fenced area. I would plant a dedicated fodder plot, and I would manage them from the get-go, because the time it's going to take you to transform that tree, if you're successful, and I'd say it's a 50-50 shot if it even dies, if you're successful, you would have far more productivity out of a small 25 foot by 25 foot fodder plot than
if you're good at rooting trees, you can certainly root cuttings off those things and make your shit for free, or buy some from Nick, because his diapers ain't gonna buy themselves. Question: I bought Nick's high bush blueberries. Are they all the same cultivar?
They are. Yeah. So any of these, so that's going to be the fruit and nut. Those are all the same cultivar. They're a wild type high bush blueberry. It's not going to be one of the big rabbit eyes. And so but they're just,
that also means they're incredibly genetically diverse because they're a wild type. So
they're diverse. They're going to be hardy. They're going to be a lot less prone to any of the diseases and insect issues. They're not going to be as productive, but they're going to be a lot hardier. And that's what I built that pack to be.
Okay. Not really related, but we'll do it anyway because we're almost done. I'm planning on planting hundreds of pumpkins and other squash in my woods for deer and wildlife. Do you see any pros or cons with this idea? Well, if it's an unprotected area, it's going to be hard to grow them because they don't really like shade, and everything's going to eat them because they're going to be like this green thing all over the ground. So I don't know.
If it's the woods and it's a total canopy forest, they're not going to grow. They're going to be these anemic little, I mean, we're going to have squash with leaves like that big, and it's just not going to produce anything. They need to be in the sun.
Somebody here responded earlier to them and said they like full sun, and that's true to a degree. They're a good edge plant.
Yes.
You think about the size of their leaves, right? So they actually natively are an edge species. They like to grow in that, where forest meets field. So you might be able to edge grow them, but everything eats them, and they might eat them long before you want them eaten, I guess is the way I'm putting it. So zombies, best oak for acorns to feed hogs.
The best one is white oak. Any of the white oak species, chestnut oak is pretty dang good. That's really up there. That's why it's on my oak bonanza list. But any three of those are going to be really good. That's why I chose them. The worst one of the three in my oak bonanza is going to be the sawtooth. But I didn't pick it because it's the best acorn. I picked it because it was the fastest. So I can get some productivity very quickly and then let that hold me over while the white oak are coming into maturity and starting to produce. So
Cool.
The best one, white oak.
All right, so I got one more, and it's really a comment, not a question. Amy says, my vote for guest of the week. She gave me a $25 super chat, so thank you, Amy. I was going to say she's sandbagging a little bit because we only have one guest a week. But we did have John and Nicole yesterday. So John Willis and Nicole were on this week. That actually makes it pretty high praise. She probably meant guest of the quarter, though, I'm going to guess. So
well, thank you, Amy.
For that, Amy. Thank you. Anyway, there might have been some more came in while we did that, but we're done. We are at 2 hours and 25 minutes, and it is time to wrap up. Nick, I thank you for your time. I know you're not exactly sitting on a whole surplus of it right now. So thanks for being with us and helping people out. I think everybody that tuned in learned a lot today.
Great. I always appreciate being on the show, bud.
And remember, guys, rareplantstore.com is where you can get all this stuff from Nick. Nick, thank you. Take care, man. All right, guys, real quick before we go, I did want to let you know about my item of the day today. I wanted to do it yesterday, and we were so long with John and Nicole, I didn't. So I'm going to do it today no matter what. And that is, I started using these this year. I've been a big fan of standard 10-20 trays and 6-packs for a long time. But you always end up in a state where you can only grow that little plant so much before it kind of runs out of space for its roots to grow. And it's so close to everybody else, it's not doing as good. So I went to like 3-inch square nursery pots about 4 years ago, still using 10-20 trays, but they kind of flop all over the place. I found these from a company called Root Trimmer or Root Rimmer, depending on how you want to pronounce it, I guess, but the way they capitalize it in the middle looks like root trimmer to me. These are really great pots. They have really great base. There's a whole video you can watch of me explaining why they're so good in the review. But they come with a tray, and they hold 24 per tray, and it's about the same width as a 10-20, but it's a little bit shorter, but that means it'll fit anywhere a 10-20 would fit. So you got 24 per tray. I'm growing 2 trays per rack for shelf in my rack system. That's 48 plants to a shelf. And at that size, even larger plants, you don't end up having to pot them up. When you have to pot up a plant before you transplant it out, that's 2 transplantations instead of 1. It's also more work. It's another step. The way these trays are built, and they're very, very rigid, heavy-duty trays. You can move them around. Your plants aren't going to fall over, tumble over on you. Everything is perfectly designed, and the pots are super sturdy for what they are. They're also very affordable. And if you already have 3-inch pots, which by the way are 2.7 to 2.8 inches when you measure them, because nothing is what it says it is by numbers in this space, you can buy just the trays. If you have the trays and maybe you're selling plants or something, you can buy just the pots, or you can buy them together in a set. They'll be at your house 2 days after you order them. I'm sold on them. I ordered 1 set, tried them out. I ordered another set right away. So I've got 10 trays coming up of these things this year. They're fantastic. Again, check them out. They're made by a company again called Root Trimmer, and just a fantastic product. Nothing super special about them. They just do everything that you want that to do for you. With that as well, I'll remind you that you can find those on my website, thesurvivalpodcast.com. You can also go to tspaz.com, T-S-P-A-Z, tspaz.com. Find everything I recommend, full write-up and review. Many of the products have videos. Some of them do, some of them don't. You check those out. And then also, you guys that have been following the progress of the system that I built with Nick this year. He helped me kind of put the greenhouse fabrication over it that just kind of worked out the way that it did, has been doing really well. And that system is mainly for, I'm making sweet potato slips. I'm forcing ginger shoots off ginger roots so I can grow lots of ginger this year. I'm using it to my surplus from my seed start. When I got 2 tomato plants in, when I pull one out, instead of tossing it, I'm sticking it in there and keeping it alive until it can go somewhere else. And a lot of other really cool stuff with it. Well, I put out a video today about 13 minutes long, going over the progress since the last update, which was about a week ago. And it's pretty impressive. We've got tons of Murasaki sweet potato going in this year and some other cool stuff. So check that out. And remember, if you have any questions for me or show stuff that you want to see, suggestions, comments. Tell me I'm really great. Tell me I suck, whatever it is you want to do. Jack@thesurvivalpodcast.com is the email to make sure I see it. TSPC in the subject line is the way to go. On the book editor thing, I want you guys to know I should have answered you if you sent me an inquiry about it. If I didn't, then maybe I missed your email. I got over 30 people wanted to edit the book. And I need one. So I went through and viciously culled like 22 of y'all. So it was down to like 8 finalists. All the finalists, you got an email. All the people I culled, you should have had an email that says, hey, I'm sorry, I had to do it that way. I'd love to say yes to everybody. I can't. But the people that I emailed back and said, you're a finalist, I gave you some questions. I'd like to see those questions back to me this week because I'd like to make a decision by this weekend of who's going to have this job going forward. And as I said in the email when I responded to that, I'm looking for somebody to edit the second edition also of the first book once you're done with the second. And then there's the third book going to come out. And I want that person to do all of these. And it's kind of a mixed small payment plus a royalty. So it is kind of an opportunity. So hopefully y'all that are a finalist take it seriously and maybe you'll be the one I pick. I haven't had to do this shit since I was an employer, going through basically a bunch of resumes and just good people and saying, no, it sucks. So if you got a rejection, don't take it personal. It was just, hey, I can only pick one. The only other alternative was put everybody's name in a thing and spin it and do it randomly, and that didn't seem like a good idea. So anyway, thank you guys. Thanks for tuning in today. Hope you enjoyed today's show. Tomorrow will be expert council Q&A show for the week, and next week we'll get up and do it all again.